It is that time of year. Once again, one of my absolute favorite videos to film every year is recounting my most worn fragrances of the year. And I don't do this just by a whim, just by the ones that felt like I wore them the most. I keep it quantifiable. I use the numbers. I'm weird, I'm nerdy, I don't really care because it helps me make a video like this in an authentic and realistic manner. But I track all of my wearings using Parfum, not sponsored, never will be. They're just a fantastic database where you can store all the fragrances you own digitally and you can track your wearings. So I always go back, I check all the numbers, I put them in an Excel spreadsheet. I've been doing this since 2017. It can take me about an hour and a half to compile everything, but it's never dull. So I'm looking at 13 different fragrances here. We have some slight changes this year in terms of format. We're going to keep it simple though, so let's dive right into it. So yes, I have everything ranked based on number of wearings. However, I am including a few honorable mentions, and I'm doing so considering something that I think I've seen a few of you guys mention in past videos, and that is the ratio for number of wearings versus how long I've had the fragrance. There is a couple fragrances that I've only worn maybe 3 times this year, but I got them within the past like 2 months or less. So that much wearing and that little time, believe it or not, is quite a lot for me. I try to cycle through as many fragrances as I can every year. I try to wear different things every day because I have hundreds of fragrances to wear. So getting that much wearing in that little time, as I said, that's a big deal. First thing I want to do before we dive into this year's fragrances is do a little bit of comparison to last year. I always like to reflect and look back at just the total numbers and how they compare. So last year, 2022, I'm looking at it here on my computer and you'll see it on your screen. It looks like I wore 48 designer fragrances, 159 niche fragrances for a grand total of 205 fragrances worn. And last year's winner was Brass and Soul by quite a large margin. This year, I'll just tell you some of the totals that we're going to be looking at. A total of 73 designers, a total of 154 niche fragrances, technically more designers and a little bit less niche, but overall a larger total of 227 different fragrances worn for the year. I think that number has only gone up as I continue to get more fragrances. So let's get into the rankings. First of all, I have 2 honorable mentions, as I mentioned. The first one up is one that I did a first impressions video on in a short. You can check that out here if you missed it. From Mind Games, we have one of their newest releases. They call it Gambit. I don't believe I mentioned this in my first impressions because it's taken me several wearings to understand this, but in my experience, it is kind of reminiscent to Dior Sauvage Elixir. That's just my opinion. That's what I get out of it. The vibe I get here is a Sauvage Elixir kind of vibe. It is spicy, almost shower gel fresh, clean, woody fragrance. There is this mature, sexy quality to the scent. It's pretty fresh, but it's kind of dark. It captures a similar vibe, but it is not exactly the same. It does use some different ingredients that pop out a little bit more, but it does have that very contemporary, clean smell that you get out of a lot of modern designer fragrances, namely the Sauvage line. I have mixed feelings about that, even though it is not one-to-one by any means, but I did really enjoy the wearing experience of this fragrance. For some reason, I just couldn't get enough of it. I can see this being a compliment getter if that's something you're looking for. It does smell of good quality. The ingredients here are definitely top tier. Now, keep in mind, this is a very expensive fragrance. It's hard for me to say it's completely worth the price for what you get, but you be the judge of that. I'm going to leave a link down below to get a discovery set to check out Mind Games for yourself. But anyway, I have worn this 3 times just since getting it earlier this month in December. So again, that's pretty dang good. That's our first place honorable mention. Our second place honorable mention is one I also wore 3 times, and I got it in the month of November. So I've had it for a little bit longer. That's why it's at the second place, but still 3 wearings in this little bit of time is a big deal. And I've been loving this fragrance. It's going to be in more of my content as we move forward into next year, but this is Chanel Platinum Egoiste. This is a total classic. It's a Fougere fragrance that I think everyone must try. It was the subject of the first episode of Timeless Fragrances You Must Try Before You Die. If you want a classic example of a barbershop Fougere, this has to grace your nose at some point. Incredible stuff. Gonna get a lot of wearing out of this. All right, let's get into the top 10. Now, we technically have a top 11. There's a few ties throughout here, and they're very specific this time around. I was considering the idea of how long have I had these fragrances, and that determined their placement. I'm really happy with this change. It gives us a little bit more clarity. At the 10th spot, so to speak, with 5 wearings, even though the next 2 spots also have 5. I've had this one the longest. I've had this for over 2 years now. My fragrance, Brass and Soul. This was the winner last year with 27 wearings. I tried to get away from it a little bit this year. Oh, it's so freaking good. But at the same time, my attention was had by another fragrance, which kind of took its place. But this is still nonetheless a wonderful fragrance that I'm not going to say much more about because you can't get it. So that's Brass and Soul at number 10. At number 9, also with 5 wearings, but it's ahead of Brass and Soul because I got it in March of this year. This was a surprise staple for a period of time throughout the year. I found myself gravitating towards it when I didn't know what to wear, when I just wanted something fresh, clean, but slightly interesting and not super generic. This is Bvlgari Man Rain Essence. I find this stuff to be beautiful, easy to wear. There's a calming vibe to it. There's like a tea feeling. There's Lotus, which is a watery floral note. It just smells like water, but with like a manly, musky feeling, maybe a touch of sweetness in there to make it more interesting. I like it. I don't love it. It's like a 7 out of 10. I think it's a pretty good release from the house of Bvlgari. It kind of recaptured my interest in this collection from the house. So we'll see what they do next. At the 8th spot, also with 5 wearings, but I've had it since April. So I've had it 1 month less than the Bvlgari. Man, I'm loving this stuff. I wore it most recently, maybe a couple weeks ago. Terre, Parfum. Oh my goodness, such a refinement of this DNA. If I had to pick one out of the entire line, I think it is the Parfum. It is just a rounded, richer version of this DNA, that woodiness, dry with that citrus kind of orange feel, a little bit dirty, but in a very classy way. And it kind of strips away the rough edges. It's a little bit less fresh, not necessarily stronger. So don't assume that just because of the name Parfum. It just has a certain behavior. It might sit on your skin a little bit longer. It might leave a different kind of trail, but it is not necessarily a stronger fragrance. But I love the vibe I get when I wear this. It just feels so classy. It is a little bit different of a vibe than the original, so it is kind of hard for me to truly compare them, even though they're based on the same DNA. They almost have a different function, in my opinion. Anyway, that's Terre Parfum. Lovely stuff. At the 7th spot, we have a tie, and this was a funny tie. I was chuckling to myself when I found this out. We have both Xerjoff 40 knots and we have Kenzo Homme EDP. These both have 6 wearings, and the reason why they're a tie is because I literally bought them at the same time in the same order. When I purchased from fragrancebuy.ca, this was the order. It was these 2, and lo and behold, I've worn them the exact same amount of times this year, which is really cool. Kenzo Homme is a dark, fresh, smoky, leathery aquatic, pretty powerful, more like a nighttime aquatic, so to speak. 40 knots is not what I thought it would be, but it's grown on me. It's kind of like this fresh, woody, powdery, ambery fragrance, kind of similar to Dior Ombre Nuit, maybe a little bit more fresh than that. Pretty powerful stuff, very elegant smelling, a little bit particular. I have to kind of be in the mood for it, but I guess whatever that mood is, I had it the same amount of times for both of these fragrances. Anyway, that's 40 knots from Xerjoff, Homme EDP from Kenzo. At the 6th spot, also with 6 wearings, but I got it in May, so I've had it 1 month less than the Kenzo and the Xerjoff with the same amount of wearings, so hence it's a notch higher from Roja Parfum, one of their newer releases this year. This is Elysium Eau Intense. I was a little skeptical going into this, but it actually surprised me. I'm actually surprised to see how much I wore it this year. I felt like I wore it quite a bit when I got it. I got away from it, and then I have pulled it out maybe twice in the past couple months to edge it up to this spot here. And I do like it because it is not a redundant flanker. It actually makes the original Elysium a little bit more niche, so to speak. It's more particular. It's gonna rub some people the wrong way. Not everyone's gonna find this enjoyable because the rhubarb note here. Rhubarb is a very particular tart, fruity quality. It is a little bit icy and cooling here. The original DNA is here, but it is ultimately a different personality on the identity of Elysium, and I truly respect that. It does come across as a easy to wear, fresh and clean niche fragrance of good quality with a little bit of interest, so I dig that. Elysium Eau Intense. Our final fragrance with 6 wearings, I got it in June of this year, so 1 month less than Elysium, so it's a notch higher from Nishane. We have Papilefiko. I've been raving about Papilefiko this year. I've had several of you guys reach out to me saying you tried it. Some of you said it's awesome, you love it. Some of you said it was a little bit weird to you or it just wasn't your thing. That's just how it's gonna happen. Everything cannot be for everyone, but for whatever reason, this stuff really speaks to me. It's almost like this resinous famous Fougere. I get a fresh, almost barbershop quality to it, a cleanliness, a sophistication, but there is this dark, mossy, sweet quality, a nice spicy cardamom note that is a little bit alluring, kind of sexy, but it's also a little bit elegant and performs well. I think you can wear it year round. Not my top choice for the hottest days out, but I would easily pull it off on a summer night, so I think it's great for all year round use. Nishane Papilefiko. I'll keep raving about it in the coming year. Okay, into our sevens, we have two of them. The number 4 spot is number 4 because I've had this bottle for quite some time. The number 3 spot is much newer to my collection. I just got it this year, so one of my absolute favorites, if not my favorite, yeah, I'm just gonna call it my favorite from the house of Roja Parfum. We have Oligarch Eau de Parfum. I love this fragrance and I've loved it ever since I first tried it from a travel atomizer. I like it a lot more than its current iterations, more than the Parfum that replaced this, and more than Isola Blu, which replaced the Oligarch name altogether. Isola Blu is still the character, but for whatever reason, the Eau de Parfum behaves on my skin in its own way. It has a sparkling brightness. It is juicy and citrusy. It is kind of green and woody, masculine, elegant. It is very versatile. I will cherish this fragrance for such a long time. Love this stuff. Anyway, moving on. At number 3, I've only had this fragrance since August and I have wore it 7 times. It's become a bit of a go-to, a bit of a dumb reach for me, but one that still carries a lot of class to it, a lot of special qualities for being relatively simple, but also quite unique. Ormonde Jayne, Ormonde Man. Came out in the early 2000s. Honestly, a completely timeless scent profile that I think has silently influenced other fragrances that are now gaining popularity that have come out recently. It's this soft, musky, woody quality with lots of cardamom in here. There's a freshness, there's a spiciness, almost an herbal quality, maybe a touch of this nutty type of sweetness that I couldn't really explain to you, but I just love this stuff. It's something I could pick up and spray for any occasion, any time of the year, but this summer it was really kicking and I'm gonna get a lot more wear out of it as we move into 2024. So let me know if you dig Ormonde Jayne, Ormonde Man, and if you haven't tried it, check it out at the link down below. With 8 wearings, I was so happy to see this fragrance rank so highly because I felt like it was on my mind a lot this year and I felt like I reached for it quite a bit this year. From the house of Tom Ford, one of my absolute favorite Fougeres, Fougere D'Argent. I think this is easily underrated. I find it to be a simple but deep Fougere. It's very contemporary. It's a cozy, warm, sweet but clean smelling Fougere. It definitely smells reminiscent of that barbershop style quality, but there's something sexy and rough about it. I think it's the cashmere note that is very alluring. It's something that makes this shine in the evening, a Fougere for the evening time that has that right amount of sweetness and allure to it that just makes it perfect for when the sun goes down, but it's also something that smells very professional when you wear it during the daytime as well. I think it is a good year-round scent. Again, maybe not the prime high heat sun up ahead kind of scent. You could probably pull it off, but I would go for more fresher citrusy options over this, but summer nights works just fine. Fougere D'Argent, 8 wearings. I'll try to get even more next year. And at number 1, some of you guys probably saw this coming, with 19 wearings. Not the highest number for a number 1 spot, but still quite a margin between this and everything below it. I was really getting a lot of fragrances this year and I was trying to wear more. As you could see, my total number went up, hence why maybe I didn't wear this quite as much as I could have. There was many times I can remember throughout the year when I almost wore it and diverted to something else, so number honestly would have probably been higher, but I've been making an effort to diversify my wearings. But Second Soul, my fragrance, my most current collaboration with the house of Zaharoff. It has been on the market for over a year now. Many of you guys have gotten it and have enjoyed it from what I've seen, and if you don't want to miss out on this very special collaboration that is basically me in a bottle, basically my quintessential fragrance, then I would check it out now because it's most likely not going to last through the end of the year. I've been warning about that for some time. We've been keeping an eye on the stock and it's looking a little slim, guys. So if you consider yourself a true supporter of Stay Fresh Productions and you have not yet tried me in a bottle,
are you a true supporter of Stay Fresh Productions?
You know I'm kidding. Mostly. Check it out. I would love to know what you think. And those of you who have tried it, please sound off down in the comments, especially you, Mr. Bean. You crack me up. A lot of people think that I'm paying you to say the comments that you say.
I'm not paying him $1.
He's just a true avid Second Soul lover and I could not be happier. Anyway, check out Second Soul at the link down below before it's gone. That's my top fragrance for the year. Here we are at the end of another year. Really thrilled to have brought you guys so much content this year. I really appreciate all of your support, your viewership. If you're new to the channel, thank you for giving me a chance. If you've been here for a while, thank you for rocking with me all this time. Here's to many more great fragrances, interesting topics of discussion, and new members to the Fresh Squad in 2024. Be kind, be considerate, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.